Welcome back to Beau's workshop. I'm building my first guitar neck, and as I'm going through, I'm finding a couple issues that I wish I would know about before I started the project. But I'm a beginner, so this is all a learning process. At first, I thought, well, maybe it would be too much trouble to make a guitar neck. It would probably require a bunch of special tools that I don't have, and I was a little doubting my knowledge and maybe even skill level. I'm not a master woodworker, but I'm pretty successful at building boats and stuff. So I started looking into it, and I met a luthier, and the luthier, I said, well, would you be interested in building a neck for me for my Pecan electric guitar build? Here's the body for that. He said, well, I'd be willing to show you how to do it. I said, well, cool, that would be fun. I'm excited. So I went down to his workshop, and I didn't get any footage down there. I mean, I've just met him. I didn't want to go, ask him to film in his workshop. I don't know if he'd be comfortable with it or not. But so he helped me make the fretboard. So he has a jig to help do the radius. He has a jig to cut the slots for the frets. Now, this is a Gibson scale. I think it was like 25.5 or something like that. Once again, I'm pretty novice at this. So we made the fretboard, and one thing that I've noticed is, well, the fretboard I have is much thicker than all the rest of my guitars. So it's a little bit over 1/8 of an inch. We look at this fretboard surface. Let's get it close. And so this is a little bit wider. And everything comes down to taste. I mean, what do you prefer? What do you want it to look like? So maybe there's no specific right or wrong. Maybe there is. I guess you'll have to decide that if you're going to make one of these projects. So the first issue that I ran into was I was on StuMac looking for a truss rod. And I'm not sponsored by StuMac, but it's just an easy place to get stuff. Now that the interwebs has discovered that I'm interested in guitars, and I'm getting all sorts of advertisements for wood and tools, and some of them are very slick, and well, I'd rather get those commercials than like the mail order brides and stuff that 45-year-old men get pitched, because I'm not into that. But I ordered this truss rod first. This with the two pieces in the brass, and it was because the other truss rod wasn't in stock. Now, once I got all this together, well, this is a lot thicker than this, so your neck is going to have to be thicker using this rod. And I discovered that maybe you'd want your headstock to be at an angle to make this truss rod work better. And I didn't really think that was the best thing for my project. So I ended up ordering this second truss rod, which is more slick. And the truss rod goes right in this groove. And then once you glue that in and you bring another piece of wood, you fill that in, surface this edge, and then you can mount the fretboard. And then I'm going to have the adjustment here to headstock. You can do the adjustment down here. Like this truss rod, it might be a better, it goes in like that. So the adjusting rod might be better down here. But with the way that I'm doing my body, I didn't think that was going to work out. So first mistake I made was making this routing deep enough for the first truss rod that I bought. So now I'm instantly going to have a little bit fatter neck than I would have otherwise. And I've started the neck carve. And I can take about a 1/16 of an inch off the back of this, and maybe I could take a 1/16 inch off this top surface. And then I'm going to have to shape this to feel. Now, there's different neck carves that you can do. The most common is like a C shape, like a square neck. It's pretty universally comfortable. This neck might end up being like a soft V shape. I've played a couple guitars in guitar shops with the soft V. I played one guitar with a hard V. It was a HD 28 Martin guitar, and I did like how it feels. So this might end up going a little bit more V shape. Because it's going to be a little bit thicker than I wanted. And I think I'm going to have to take off some off the back of this fretboard to make the neck thin enough. Now, routing this groove here, was a little bit tricky. This is round 2. Round 1, I'd set up a fence. I clamped this all to a table, and I thought I was doing what I should do. And the router, kind of shifted, and I boogered it up. And then also on my router, when I crank down the bits, I have to crank it down so tight I think I'll never get it back off. But I didn't crank it down tight enough, and then the bit walked down, and it messed up this whole groove. Now I think you could fix it. I think you could flip this over and cut out a piece and maybe put a wood stripe in there. Maybe that'll become a guitar neck at a later date. But I want the standards high on this, so I just had to start again. Now, I really like the pattern of the wood on the headstock versus this, so it's going to be a little bit more plain. But for the sake of, I want a very nice functional guitar. I'm really trying to do a fantastic job. And this is some wood I cut out of a tree stump in my house in Georgia. I've been dragging that wood around for a decade. So here are the tools that I'm using. I made some sanding blocks out of a piece of square tubing I had, and then I have self-adhesive sandpaper, so you can just stick that right to your block. I have a little cup so I can collect sanding dust if there's somewhere where I have to fill in some wood. I can use that for wood flour. And I have some chisels and some files, so you're probably looking at 25 bucks worth of tools at Harbor Freight. I have a longer straight edge to help line up the neck with the body. We got some wood glue, and I got a little bit of an example here to work from, marking tools. And then I have, I bought a wide neck guitar neck, and that's the curve on it. So if I want it to be like that, I can use that as a gauge. So there are different levels that you can build a neck. I mean, you're going to have to buy a neck blank. You're going to have to design your headstock. You're going to have to carve it. You can buy fretboards that are pre-slotted and already have a radius, so you wouldn't need to have jigs and fret saws and different stuff to do it. If you're doing it from scratch, you need more tools, obviously. They even have frets that already have a radius in them, and they come in smaller pieces versus buying straight stock where you have to kind of shape it a little bit. So you could try making a guitar neck for the first time without buying a ton of tools. Of course, you need a router. When you're using the router, I have found that you need to make jigs. You need to make things that hold stuff in place. It's very, very necessary. I've messed up some good work with a router because I don't know what I'm doing. But this is a good way to build some skills. So you want to up your game on precision woodwork. This is not a bad way to go. And it's a lot of fun. And the worst thing that happens is, well, you mess it up and you have to start over, or you just buy a neck. Now, when it comes to putting in the frets, I might have to buy some fret crowning tools and other stuff. You could have the option of just paying someone to do some fret work for you. You're not going to save any money. That neck I bought from Big Lou was 125 bucks. I'm going to be into this much deeper than that, but it's more of a challenge piece, and I'm going to use very high-end components. So as long as I can keep my standards up, then I should end up with a very nice guitar. Maybe it's not like a master luthier could do, but it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be better than a Squire or something like that, because I'm going to hold the standard. And it'll have really nice components. So there will be a full guitar build video coming up if you're interested in seeing it. But the takeaways here, well, you'll have to buy a neck blank. You're going to have to do some precision routing. You can buy parts where you don't have to make every component of it. Planning out the build before you start is probably a good idea. And figuring out what neck shape that you want. Figuring out how deep you want the pocket on your neck, on your body of your guitar. These are all factors that you want to know about. Choosing your truss rod and the consequences of those choices are something that you want. And but it's really doable. So if you make something and shoot a video so I can watch it. And if you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I appreciate your time watching. I hope this helps you out a little bit. Thanks.